With the T-Type and the GN, Buick had done the impossible. They had reinvented the muscle car and updated it for the 80s. The little 3.8-liter V6 had grown from a 180 horsepower novelty engine into a 245 horsepower Stormer in just 4 years. And these cars had proved that going fast didn't have to come at the expense of luxury, comfort, and gas mileage. And now, word came down from the ivory tower that after 1987, there would be no more of them. But this time, it wasn't a 70s we hate cars management edict that killed the GN. Typical of Buick, it was a very logical engineering decision.
Well, unfortunately, what really happened was the body went away. If you remember, 1988, they started the new front-wheel drive body, and all the G bodies were discontinued. That whole rear-wheel platform was now extinct, and they really didn't have a front-wheel drive platform that could adequately handle the torque and the output of the turbo V6.
What happened next would make automotive history.
We knew that the production was running out. We were stopping production of the Grand Nationals. The public knew it as well. So we knew we needed to celebrate that movement of the car and its departure. So the task was to build a new Grand National, a special edition that outperformed the Grand National, but also was the Grand National to end all Grand National production.
What they built was the GNX. With the 87 Grand National as a baseline, they created a modern American classic in every way, from appearance to performance. From the car's new GNX badging to its flared fender wells and 16 by 8-inch BBS wheels to the classic Buick portholes, this was a collector's car, even before it was built.
Every car was sold before the first car was built. That doesn't often happen. And when we saw the articles that it had, and a positive media exposure in the press that it had already received from the two prototype runs, there's little choice. We had to build this car.
A special car like the GNX would have to have more power. But by now, the turbo V6 was so well developed, there wasn't much left to modify. For help, Buick called on McLaren, the world-famous racing engine builder, to find a few more horses. Along with some reprogrammed electronics, the GNX was treated to a new ceramic-coated turbo impeller and a specially designed intercooler. Combined with an enlarged turbo exhaust housing and a less restrictive exhaust system, this helped the GNX's power plant max out at 276 horsepower and 360 foot-pounds of torque. But by far, the major changes took place in the car's suspension.
Now, we knew we had a lot more power going back to the road surface, so we knew we needed to make sure we tied down that rear end. So we couldn't allow the pig or the differential to rotate on load. So we introduced a ladder bar, a longitudinal rod, if you will, that tracked almost halfway up through the car, meeting at a mount point just aft of the rear end of the transmission. That ladder bar kept the differential from rotating on torque load. Instead, the rear end of the car lifts up. That keeps the tires planted firmly on the ground. There's been far better performance.
All this work cut more than a second off the GN's 0 to 60 times, and its quarter-mile performance was astonishing. The car cornered like a sports car, and today, almost 15 years later, it still looks like the meanest car on the road. But maybe the car's greatest gift to the muscle car world was that it taught Mike Doble and the GNX team something very special about the love people have for performance cars.
I think the strongest message was that we gained a kind of a lesson or awareness of the fervor that the market had for niche vehicles. They wanted vehicles that were unique, that were special to them. The cars that set a statement and kind of meet their lifestyles and made them feel a little unique and special when they're in it.
Even though they were only in production for a few years, the turbo cars from Buick created a following as strong and enthusiastic as any muscle car ever made. In 1987, when Buick canceled the Grand National, Buick dealers all over America were inundated with orders for one of the last ones. The demand was so great that Buick extended its production run until over 20,000 1987 GNs were eventually made. Today's Grand National and T-Type owners range from people who raced big block Fords and Chevys in the 60s to young people getting their first taste of going fast and loving every minute of it. Bill Savino and his two sons, Mike and Dan, each own a turbo Buick. It was Bill who started this family trend.
I drove an 87 new in the dealership, and I fell in love with it, so I just got my chance last year to buy an 87 Grand National. Well, after I got my first Grand National, Mike decided he wanted to buy one, and then Dano got the bug. Dano bought his 85.
I've known about them since probably 8 years old. Said when I turned 16, 17, I'd like to get one. So they're a little older, they have a little more money, so had to get a cheaper one, and stumbled across this and bought it.
Thanks for watching, and remember, don't crush them, restore them.